Okay, so as we're streaming, we're going to let Twitch catch up. We're into kind of a bit of a foobar yesterday with the streaming service. I think we're good. I think. So this is going to be day 2 of the interpreter pattern. We had a little bug at the very end of yesterday, so this is a good opportunity to run through everything we did. Oops, here we go. Give me 2 seconds. Smudge in chat says hello. Hello to you, Smudge. Twitch is something kind of funny, but I think it's okay. Alright, I did lose chat for a second. Alright, so I believe I had an outstanding check-in. Let's check. Let's see. No, look good. Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to head over... Oh, my dog is losing its mind. Let's get over here. And I got an outstanding pull request for mass cleanup. This is from Smudge. So I had to share this because, you know, a part of the stream is all things development. I didn't see anything too crazy. So let's just go ahead and merge it in and see what happens. Uncomfortable. All right. One conflict. This all looks good. Where is my conflict, though? I'm so used to the GitHub browser. Why doesn't it show me my conflict here? I mean, I get it. Strange. Alright, we'll come back to that. I think. I'm probably going to do this from the command line, and that's not happy. This is why live mergers are scary. Just a hat. Oh, where's my brain today, people? Yes, as much as I can either revert or delete my local master branch and recheck out, both of which are pretty good ideas. Let's fuddle around for a second. because we all fuddle. It's nice to see what fuddling gets you. I honestly can't remember. I didn't do anything, I don't think. I have to lose something. I've done this before. Alright, we might just delete it, because I do want smudges changes. Didn't do anything too scary. Which was a cop-out, though, you know what I mean? When you go with the burn away. And the redo. Goodbye. That is not true anymore. Alright, so, cheap way out, but no one's feelings are hurt. At least mine aren't. Oh, hang on. I need to turn some lights in here. Okay, so, let's just make sure everything does what it's supposed to. And go into properties. Oops. Not the F4 properties. These properties. Same things before. Start. We want this to start before our client. Apply it. That feels good. Okay, so we're able to log in. Oh no. Alright, let's start the debug process. Okay. This all feels all right. And we want to go into our server. That's where we did most of our changes. Console process strategy. This all feels okay. So, what we did yesterday was we had a bunch of stuff in our get game response inside of this strategy. So we got two endpoints. We have the client and it's sending a request to the server. Then the server should be smart enough to figure out where that request came from and then process it accordingly. So we're just assuming for right now that everything's coming from the console. So we automatically lit up the console process strategy, which takes the request, turns it into a console request, so a bit of a bridge there. And then we're going to take that console request and turn it into a game request. Then we're going to take that game request and we're going to turn it into an action context and give it off to the hive mind. So quite a few steps there. And we've kind of validated each one of those abstractions along the way with different patterns, whether it be the adapter pattern, the strategy pattern, or the command pattern. So There's a reason for all those layers of abstraction. So let's see if we can get that far. So what we did was we turned our game request into our interpreter. So we go into our game request. We've got an abstract expression. And the only thing our abstract expression requires that we do, let's jump in there, is override, evaluate context, get player name, get game action, get target name. So the idea here is that we're taking our input and we're going to wrap it up into a context. In this case, we don't have to change, it's a string, right? But it becomes this object, and then we evaluate that first to see what we can derive from it before doing anything else. So we evaluate the context, and then if we go into the game request, we can see that when we evaluate the context, we're going to split it up, we're going to do some basic logic checks, and we're going to use this information to kind of guide the flow of the rest of the interpretation. So it's helpful. We've also got a constructor here, but you are free in all of your implementations of the abstract expression. Do whatever you need to satisfy evaluate context and then these other methods. The actual interpreting, the steps that are taken, we're baking that into the abstract expression. This saves you, it really does. It saves you from having to think about it. So 5 months from now, because anything written in the past might as well have been written by a stranger. So 5 months from now, 6 months from now, when you come back here and you want to extend this, you can put on your dumb hat and just create a new class, inherit this, override what you need, and don't have to worry about this flow control here. It's kind of a write once and pay forward kind of thing. So after we evaluate the context, we're saying, hey, if from that evaluation we decide there is no game action here, just return it. And by returning it, we're saying we're going to defer the rest of this responsibility to something else that's deeper in the engine. And if we can't discern that it's a login, so it's not a login, it's something else, we're going to go ahead and get the game action, right? So anything that you see here should be things that you discern from the evaluate context. And then if we get this far without returning, we want to go ahead and get the player name. And then if we don't have a target, go ahead and return. Otherwise, get the target name. So let's see where things go wrong. So we've already done the constructor, and we're going to interpret the command. It's F11 on that. So we come inside the abstract expression. We have our context, which is just Gary. Then we're going to evaluate the context. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Now we're back on our game request. We're going to split it. It's not greater than 2, so it's not gibberish or a sentence or just someone speaking. It doesn't equal 2, so there is no target. We come out of our evaluate context. So we know now that the game action is a login. And we're going to go ahead and get the player name. So it's F11 into that. So player name now becomes Gary. And we set has player to true. Let's keep on moving. There is no target, so let's go ahead and return. And let's go and execute. So before we do that, so we've been able to abstract out that interpretation to the place where it should be. It shouldn't be inside of our process strategy. The only thing we care about in this process strategy, because remember we're coming from our client to our server, and as the gatekeeper on the server, we're saying, hey, process this incoming thing and turn it into something we can understand. Because it could be, like we said yesterday, like 3 clicks of a button. It could be anything. And it's not going to be the hive mind's responsibility to figure that stuff out. It's above all that. It's a fairly entitled thing. So let's go ahead and go into execute. And so now that we have a game request, and from that we're going to create an action context. And so we have all these API endpoints, right? So the server talks to the client talks to the server, and they've got their own contract. And then the server talks to the game engine, talks to the hive mind, and they have their own contract. And then the hive mind talks to all of the underlying game objects, and they have their own contract. So earlier we're talking about all these levels of abstraction and where they fall in, and it really has to do with when we create this API and these connecting parts, and we create these abstractions, we're really creating these points of conversation. And if you're going to talk to each other, they have to have the same contract, right? And so that's all we've done. And then so we create a new action context, and we go ahead and bake in the game request, so that we always have an idea of what we're doing wherever we are in this process. And we create a new list of action items. So F10. And we're going to be returning a game response. So we go ahead and new up that there. And we're falling back on our chain of responsibility pattern. This is nice. And for our chain of responsibility, we've set up that we want to resolve any dependencies, then authorize the user, and then process the command. So our chain of responsibility, if you didn't see it a few weeks ago, is just a really easy way to abstract out these steps in the process in a way that can change at runtime if we needed to. That's highly flexible and highly modular. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So, and again, you should get pretty used to falling into the base class with these things. And I'm here. I'm going to handle the request. And so now I'm in the dependency handler. That was the first thing we registered. Get room by player name. This is going to be part of our problem here. Because player is null. And player is null because we haven't resolved the dependency yet. We're not resolving the player dependency until the line below. So what we actually want to do here is pull the player name from our game request. That's our expression. That's the thing we interpret it. So that's going to be our go-to whenever we want to resolve these dependencies. We're going to be resolving dependencies based on information that we interpreted from the command. Let's go ahead and stop this. So instead of our action context, we'll be doing game request dot player name. Now let's go ahead and go into our get by player name. Here we're just looking for a iPlayer. Do we want to new up the player, or do we want to mess with this extension? Oh, look at that. Smudge is one step ahead of us when he wrote these helper methods. He's given us both. Hats off to you, Smudge. So we're good, seemingly. So let's go ahead and do the same. Let's go ahead and follow that convention here. Right? So because we've got two methods that are able to receive either a player or as a iPlayer or the player name, we're free to create two here as well, if that makes sense. We'll change that so it's not quite as confusing. Okay, So that should now work. So now we're saying, hey, get the room by the player name. So then we have the room. And then next we're going to say, give me the player. And so if the room doesn't equal no, then go ahead and get the player by name. And then if there's a target, then get the target. So we resolved, if we look at our action context, we resolve the player, the target, and the room. So we technically have everything we need to start deep diving into the hive mind and resolving this game request. Let's go with Gary. We interpret the command, and then we pass it off to the hive mind to execute. Inside of the hive mind, we need an action context and a response. And then we ask the chain of responsibility pattern to handle processing. We resolve that dependency being the room, and we get a room. And then we resolve the player, but we get an exception, our next in a long line of them, I'm sure. So let's go into that guy and see what it thinks we should be doing. Oh, look at that. Once again, we're trying to get the player with the player. Doesn't even make any sense. We have the room, we know that, because it succeeded, but we don't have a player yet. So let's go into get player by name. Alright, I'm using iPlayer. Don't need that. Once again, so here we have the same kind of thing. Just gonna write this out because oh. No, that would have been superfluous, because we already have a helper here that get player by room. That's actually what we want. Let's not outsmart ourselves. Right? If we have the calls, let's use them. Whether we want to clean this up later on is a business of our future selves. But in the meantime, let's not clutter it up any more than we have to. So go ahead and get player by room instead. That's the call we want. I'm just going to copy this same thing right here. Oh, I'm sorry. And Ronald Rowe asked, is there a convention behind the underscore on some of your variables? Right. So if there's an underscore, it should denote that it's a private field. That's pretty much it. Just so you know at a glance, you can say, okay, this is private, and if it's uppercase with no underscore, then it's going to be public, and most likely a property with a getter and setter. And of course, you can tell if it's a property or a method, or whether or not you got some parentheses at the end. So this is a method. And this is going to be a property. And so the reason, so for example, you would never see this. That'd be weird, right? It's definitely it's a nice little cognitive hint to say, well, this looks wrong just instinctually, so I can avoid doing that. Okay. Oops. So we got our Gary now. Let's do this again. Go through the interpret. Yeah, we know that's going to work. Execute. Request handler. Into the dependency. And we have our player. And is there a target? There is no target, so we're not going to try and get one. Then we're going to pass to the successor. This is where the chain of responsibility really comes in to help us out. So our next successor in the chain of responsibility is the auth handler. So the off handler says, hey, I've got a new action result for you. And if the player equals no, meaning we couldn't find one, and this is a login action, then we want to go ahead and return back, sorry, no player by that name. And if the player is not null and it was a login, we want to say, hey, let's go ahead and set that player to be in state, or in play. Give them a message, say what's successful, and add the action result to the list of action items. So one thing to note here is, when we say player, game object state is equal to in play, you can ask yourself, and it's a really good question, how does anything outside of the hive mind even know about this? Don't we have to do like hive mind dot game objects dot find and then change it there? And we don't. A few weeks ago we used the flyweight pattern. So what you see here is actually going to be the reference to the item in the hive mind dictionary, right? So we didn't new this up. This is the same player that anyone else would call. I'm not going to go too into that because I think it'll warp your brain if you aren't used to thinking about it. But the idea is that when we make changes to this player in our action context, it's referencing the player in the hive mind. It's not a new object. So this player should maintain concurrency. So when we have multiple connections and somebody fights this player, every time we say player.hit points, we should get the hit points as the hive mind understands them. I hope that makes sense. And that's all back to our flyweight pattern and the reason why we implemented that. So we add that guy. I go to my successor. That was just to finalize. So we're coming back out now. And finalize didn't do anything. I skipped over it, but trust me, it didn't do anything. Alright. So, now that we've processed our action, we want to build our response. This could easily be in its own little helper method, right? And it really should be. And that would clean up this even more. So we might do that right after this. When we set our action items, we set our room content, we push the response onto the stack so that we have a running audit trail of all the things we've done. And then we return the response. That's it. So let's go ahead and see what happens. And our nice little server is telling us that it responded to a request. It says welcome back. So cool, right? That was our interpreter pattern, and it's probably one of the smarter things we've done so far. Well, I mean, I think it's one of the smarter things. So I'm going to remove this breakpoint, and so right now we're looking at we got also here nobody, and if you remember past, one of the refactoring things that I did was to clean up this a bit. So if you remember past demos, it was saying like also here Gary and Beth. And so I changed this so that it only shows me people that are in play, that aren't me. So I'm Gary, and Beth hasn't logged in yet, right? So the other side of this whole thing in terms of interpreting and we'll get into the need for a pub sub pattern, is to say, okay, once Beth logs in, I want to get a message that says Beth enters the game. And then when I look around again, oops, let me go ahead and do this. When I look around again, it will say, okay, now Beth is here. So we're not quite that far, but I think we're at a place now where the things we need to do next become more and more obvious. So I can inspect Carl. Ooh, no command. What? Let's fix that in a second. Can I fight Carl? No. We have outsmarted ourselves. So let's go ahead and can I get anything? Ooh, something has gone awry with our interpreter. The thing that was supposed to save us. You We're the chosen one interpreter. I'm sorry, Charles Cargo says, what is that? Sorry, what is what? I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. Okay, so let's go ahead and debug into our game request. We got this guy. Let's get game action. So, and our string is inspect Carl. Inspect Carl. Ah, look at that. We are not as smart as we thought we were. So, we did everything we were supposed to, right? We got the targets, we got the games, we got blah, 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 blah. What we didn't do is put the command anywhere. That's impressive. Okay. Let's go ahead and stop this. Let's go back over to our abstract expression. So that'd be nice to have, right? We've got player name, we've got game action, we've got target name. But I think inside of our evaluate context, we also want a public string I do want to say command. I do. Let's move it up a little bit. I really, really do. So let's go back into our evaluate context for the game request. All right. So we're saying it's greater than 2, then the action is none. If length is equal to 2, and then it has a target. That's true. This is going to look weird, but well, not necessarily weird. If the args.length is equal, well, is greater than or equal to 1, we're going to say that the command is equal to args.0. We could make that, yeah, that works. So, this is all part of our evaluate context. So this is, and again, I've said this before, that even this simple thing is an algorithm, right? So we're building this algorithm here, and we're evaluating our context with it. So don't think that you need to have, if you're getting into programming, don't think that you need to have, a master's in mathematics before you can write an algorithm. It's not the case. If you ever look at source code from even like bigwig developers and programmers, like even things in the now open source like .NET code, you're going to see some things that you instinctually think to yourself, man, I know how to do that. I thought that I would have seen crazy smarty pants stuff, and it's just a nested if statement. It's actually kind of messy. So this is an algorithm, and we're employing it. Yes, we're employing it. So if the length, and again, so this is the length is greater than or equal to 1, so we have one word. All we need is one word, and we're going to assume the command is that one word. Now, down here where it says get player name, no, that's all good. So let's see if that fixes our problem. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. Hold on. Under get game action, and this should have been our first red flag, because we are doing something with the context, and we should have anything we want to do with the context should be done in the evaluate context. We should not see it down here. So that goes away. And now we're doing this. So we're cleaner, we're smarter, we're better. I think Charles Cargo's asked me what my job is. I'm an application developer for a local company. I think they like me. I like them. And I write code all day. Alright, let's check this guy out. And again, we're working directly inside the interpreter now. And we're cleaning things up and making things look all swank. So I log in. That looks good. I look around. It looks good. I inspect Carl. That looks good now, right? So we fixed that little bug and we cleaned up some things in the process. I get test hammer. Looks good. Look around again. So now the test hammer is gone from the ground. I inspect Carl again. Can I fight Carl? Ooh, yeah. So now in terms of, we're talking about earlier, that this need for a pub sub. Right now, I'm just returning back these two messages. That Gary attacks for 8 damage. I'm not even saying who Gary attacks. And that Gary attacks you for 8 damage. And so the reason I'm outputting both these messages is I don't have a good way to differentiate who these messages to go to. So whenever somebody does something, I need a few things to happen. I need the person who performed the action to get feedback. I need the recipient, so the target, to get feedback. And I need the room as a whole to get feedback. So if Beth was in the room with us and she attacked Carl, then everyone in the room should see Beth attacks the zombie for, let's just say, for 8 damage. And then Beth should get a message that says you attacked Carl for 8 damage, right? So we don't really have the tools yet to fix that, but it's something to keep in mind. It's going to be our next really rewarding step. So I inspect Carl, and he's now Carl's health is 92. Can I heal Carl? Gary heals Carl for 5 damage. That should be blue, I thought, but yeah. Oh. So, we got a nice little issue here. I got to heal Carl for 5 damage, but his health is still 92. So, I'm not going to fix that now, but because we're really just looking at how the game plays. Look around. Get test gloves. Gary takes test gloves and quickly hides it away. Okay. Fight Carl. And my stamina's going down by 2, which is the cost of fighting. And I've only got 20 stamina. Let me get the test charm. The test charm has a boost to it, so it should boost my attack. Cool, and it does. And so another aspect of the game we need to work on is the ability. I got the test glove and I got test hammer, and you see they didn't have a boost to my attack. And the hammer should, but I need to equip it. And I haven't really put into the game the ability to equip these items. So we've got some nice logic waiting for us to discover. We're having a good time just kind of playing with these design patterns, honestly. We'll get there. Fight Carl, fight Carl, fight Carl, fight Carl. Inspect Carl. So I can inspect him. He's got 13 left. I want to fight him again. I can't. Gary begins to move and then collapses. So this is another great opportunity to look at how we're sending these messages over. I want the room to see this message, Gary begins to move and then collapses. But I want something a little more insightful coming back to Gary. I want to say something like this says, hey, you've run out of stamina for the day. You need to go to find some place to rest before you can do anything else. And that's baked into our game mechanics. So I'll still be able to move. I'll still be able to look around. I'll still be able to inspect things. But I won't be able to actually perform any of our core game actions. until the next day when I get 20 more stamina to use. Alright, so let's go ahead and reset that because there's one more thing I want to check out. I want to log in as Gary. I'm going to get the test charm immediately. And then I'm going to fight Carl. Oh, look at that. So I hit get test charm and I grab the test hammer. Man. So for 2 years I worked for Electronic Arts. And I worked for Electronic Arts as a tech support guy and a bit in the game support side as well. I was too young in my career to get my bones as a developer, but I was climbing the ladder. Long story short, Electronic Arts didn't work out, and I never went back to game development professionally. But you gotta, if you ever been in a QA team or a game support team where you gotta test a bug, that is not fun. Look at me. Look. It's not fun, right? Because it'll be stuff like this. Like it's like just a dark room with people with headphones on, just crushing it all day long, just typing in the same commands over and over and over again. And heaven forbid it's like a 3D world where you got to like find like a clipping issue. You will drink, or find whatever appropriate means to calm yourself. So that's interesting. But I want to get test charm. Yeah, so it's just going in order. It's going to the first thing it finds in the room. It's an item. So I think I know what that is, but we're not going to worry about it yet. All right, so I got 18 stamina. This is kind of the idea behind the game, is that every 24 hours, this world is going to have problems to solve. There's going to be zombies to kill or bandits to kill. There's going to be holes in the wall to repair. There's going to be all this kind of survival horror stuff. And then new items will be littered on the ground. And you got to go, and you have a map. You'll be able to look at the map, and you'll be able to say, okay, I just woke up. There's a zombie and there's a hole in the wall. And I got 20 stamina. What do I do? Right? And the puzzle side of it is going to be, well, I can only equip one thing, right? So maybe I equip my hammer that gives me a boost to attack. And then I go kill the zombie. And then, well, the hammer also boosts my repair, thankfully. Then I run over the wall and I repair the wall. Right? So I'm like, okay, all my problems are solved, and I go back to bed. I wake up the next morning, I get more problems to solve, etc., etc. So this is the idea. I think it's pretty popular today in some games. We're just doing it in a text way. And we're doing it in a way that pays homage to old school text games. So let's inspect Carl. Let's fight Carl. Fight Carl, fight Carl, fight Carl, fight Carl. Inspect Carl. Fight Carl. Inspect Carl. Man, so we have just enough stamina to kill Carl. And Carl's a zombie, so bye Carl. Boom. So I hit Carl for 11 damage, and Carl falls to the ground lifeless. Look around. There's no more Carl. One of the things I'll probably do is, if these things are blank, then why show them at all, right? So this is the fun tweaky part of it. But I've got no more stamina. So imagine if you're playing the game, you have 20 stamina, and you have a hammer which helps your attack, but not quite enough. And you go and you whack Carl to death. Well, there's a hole in the wall. Well, now you can't repair it because you're too tired. And now you go to sleep, you get 20 more stamina, but because there was a hole in the wall, now instead of there being one zombie, there's 2 zombies. But maybe there's 2 zombies and an assault rifle. So now you can kill them both if you can find the assault rifle. That's the puzzle, right? Every day you should have these problems that seem unsolvable, but when you look around and you find an assault rifle, okay, now I've got enough attack bonus that I can kill both zombies and repair the wall. So, fun stuff. Okay, so back to our game, back to our code. Talking about the interpreter pattern. So, looks like we've gotten this guy to where it needs to be. It's responding soundly, and I appreciate that. So we're going to close that guy out. Inside of our console strategy, we have really cleaned things up from where it was before. All of our interpreter stuff is now in a different place. And all this guy is responsible for is taking in a request from a client, packaging it up into something that the hive mind can understand, and then returning the response to the client. So it's doing what it should be. Doing what it should be. I'm going to go ahead and refactor this. I will tell you a red flag. Whenever you new things up in a method, that should be a red flag. And I know Smudge had asked me for a pull request to go ahead and add some dependency injection. I think I'm going to do it because I think we're far enough along we can really appreciate what's going to bring to the table. But if I'm newing things up, like I'm trying to figure out like a good way to. I had an analogy earlier that I was thinking about for this, but this right isn't so bad. But in the same way that seeing a bunch of red squiggly text, like this stuff, not red squiggly, but just red text, can be something of a red flag. Seeing a bunch of new inside of a method can be a red flag. And I'll tell you, and the reason why, honestly, is because every time this method gets called, I'm newing these things up. I'm making 3 new calls. And in this case, it's fine. And let me see if I can go back to the mudz and the commits. Let's go here. I thought I had better. Alright, I'm not going to dig for it, but hang on. I'll feed you baby birds. I'll feed you. Is it in core? Oh, nope, I'm sorry. In server. Domain is DPC. Okay, so here's a great one. So before, we were doing this. Every time a request came in. So it's not horrible, but every time a request comes in, we're saying, hey, I need these 4 things. And I might not need them, right? But if you're processing 5,000 requests a second, and each one of these, we aren't doing much here, but really think about it, right? What if new request was labor intensive? What if it was part of a, like there was an async thing going on or something? It was just a labor intensive call. What if I had 3 or 4 labor intensive calls? And all these things are taking up just a small amount of memory, right? And I'm on a server. So a great way to DOS yourself is to load a bunch of things you don't need, right, or shouldn't need, on every request. So that's the reason why you that's why it's a red flag. It's not always bad. It's always fine. But if you're really going into optimization, if you're really giving it like a scrutable eye, if I'm inside of a method and I see a bunch of news that are only going to live for the life cycle or the life of that method, it raises a red flag for me. Okay. And there's some other smaller reasons, but just that's the one that I think we'll settle on for right now. And again, in this case, it's not too bad because we have a good reason for it. Oh, I'm going to do a private here. I'm going to say build response from context. I'm going to ask for an action context. Just trying to clean this up just a little bit. Single responsibility principle and all that. So I'm just going to say, hey, return new game response. And then inside of that, take this stuff. Bear with me. Hang on, let me catch up with chat here in a second because I think there's a C# versus Java debate that's raging. Let's see. Okay. Canadian asks, how's it going today? It's going pretty good. I had a delicious dinner, and we're making great progress with all our patterns and the playing of the game. Canadian also says, I disagree with new inside a method. It's not like C++. We need to be careful about memory management. It's true. It's true. It's not, and you'll get away with it 90% of the time. It really, you know, Canadian, you're right. For where we are and what we have to deal with, not a huge deal. But in the back of your gray matter, remember, like I'm like an old man in the forest. I'm cautioning you. One day you're going to get a web server that's just being crippled by requests, and this will be the answer. Lighten up your request stack. Okay, so I get to this action context, and then I'm going to get a response based on the action context. I'm going to go and throw this guy down here. I'll say var response equals build response from action context. Cool. So we added a little helper method. Tommy Two-Tone says, I have a fair amount of white noise on my audio. I'm working on that, Tommy. I'm working on it. Oh my goodness. Look at some of the old videos, man. I had this really dirty microphone. I just haven't taken the time to tweak my new one, but it's better. I can assure you it's better. I got one of these Blue Yeti microphones. I just need to tweak it. And the other problem is I've got no AC in my office. So I got a little fan off to the side. So that fan, actually, let's try this out because you brought it up. But yeah, Canadian says, I'm just gonna start saying Canadian. I'm gonna say, what do you mean? Yeah, Canadian's fine. But I felt like when I was saying Canadian, I might have been, I don't know, like saying, but Canadian says this and Irish says this. It feels maybe a little not so PC. But Tommy Two-Tones, because you've got a pretty sensitive setup, maybe you got earphones in or whatever have you, can hear that white noise. Yeah, there he goes. Tommy says, I got super good hearing. Let me turn off the fan, and then you let me know what difference it makes for you. I've also got this rig that has a a 280X little video card, and I'm sure I just need to switch it over to water cooling, if nothing for the sound. All right, so this is the experiment with the microphone with the fan off, but these with the video card fan going pretty high. So, and Hiker says he's going to roast out that fan. You were very right. So I'm going to end the experiment and turn it back on. Alright. Yeah, so 5 asks, am I a computer scientist? And Sinks asks, do you always program in C#? I program in JavaScript, C#. It's hard to say that you program in HTML, but I guess that, you do. I do a little bit of Java from time to time. But, yeah, I wouldn't call myself a computer scientist. I kind of hacked my way to where I am. Definitely self-taught. Okay, so we did that small change, and we're at a great stopping point as far as the interpreter pattern is concerned. I'll do a little more behind the scenes and commit some changes leading into next week. But I think we're definitely getting into a place where we can play the game. Let's just try to put in gibberish. Yep, so things go crazy. But I can log in, which is great. And again, I can look around. I can inspect Carl. I can get test hammer. It really says I just get, yeah. Ooh, look at that. So there's a bunch of things that I need to go back through and kind of play around with. Right? But the real idea here is that, like, when I do things like fight Carl, I think the next thing that we want to work on, aside from the bugs, next week with a design pattern, is maybe the pub sub to work out the where messages are going. So I think it's going to add a lot to our gameplay. And then once we've done that, we'll move into things like movement. Can I move from room to room and how the world works? Multiple logins, stuff like that. But if you've been following along and you've seen how far we've gotten, the game's starting to look pretty good. And we're at our hour. So I'm going to stop because I think we did a lot with the interpreter pattern. Abstract expressions. We covered some of the benefits inside of our chain of responsibility and also our flyweight pattern. So you should really, really be getting the benefits of all these design patterns as they're coming together. RobSoft UK, I've chatted with him just a little bit on Twitter. He throws a shout out to everybody. He's in a different time zone. He's going to catch the replay. But shout out right back at you, Rob. Glad you could at least come in and say hello. Hope things are going well. So I'm going to go ahead and check in this code. And it's a great segue because for folks like Rob that are coming in tomorrow, I really want it to be like a nice, concise hour that really keeps on topic. So I'm going to catch up on chat. I'm going to check things in. And then I'm going to start thinking about what to do next week. So you want to tune in next week. It's going to be Tuesday again. And we'll be trying to figure out what design pattern we want to do. And it'll be 6:45 Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday and Wednesday. Thanks everybody for hanging out, and I'll spend a few minutes waiting for the video to come up and looking at chat. Hiker says, do you upload your code somewhere? I do. So inside the channel, go ahead and look for the GitHub link. And Smudge has been real active in there. And if you want to participate, pull some code, ask some questions, raise issues, I'll do my best to respond. And the more active you guys are, the more active I'll be, and it'll be a really great learning example. And I hope that if I can't help out, maybe Smudge has some time, some other people, let's make it a thing. So yeah, look down in the channel, find the GitHub link, and peruse. It'll take you here. And I'm doing my best, and because you'll be looking at it, I'm doing my best to link up the commits with the week that we did the pattern. So if you're new, I'll reiterate this. If you look back at each commit, we're only using what we've learned so far. And I'm actually missing a bunch of commits. So for you, because I know you're going to be looking at it, this is going to be a motivation to go back in. So this commit should match up with these videos, and it'll only be dealing with this pattern. That's kind of the format. So I came here and looked through the code. Look at this. I've only got 2 projects, core and CLI. Inside my core, and I got nothing. But if I come into my solution now, look at all we've done. So if this is overwhelming to you, step back in time in GitHub and look at where we came from. And you can follow along with that code and the videos. Alright, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and stop streaming. I'll keep looking at chat as long as you guys are active. But otherwise, thanks everybody for hanging out, and I will see you next week.